Welcome back to Beyond the Wrench. My name is Jay Goninen, and I am your host. Today, I have the pleasure of being joined by two guests. Danny Corwin, Executive Director for Harbor Freight Tools for Schools, and Jay Abitz from Freedom High School. And we're here today to talk about how we as an industry can better support skilled trades education and learn a lot about both of these individuals that are doing some pretty amazing things. So how are you guys doing today?
Doing well, Jay. Thanks for having us.
Great. Super excited to talk with you guys today.
Yeah, and I think, as I mentioned, I'm a big fan of what both of you are doing. And what really tied this together is Danny and I had a conversation, and we were talking about all of the great things that his program is doing in support of high school tech ed programs. And he had the idea of bringing Jay on to join us and really talk through all of this. So because it started there, Danny, I'd like to start with you and learn a little bit about the Harbor Freight Tools for Schools program. Can you fill us in on what it's all about?
Sure. So Harbor Freight Tools for Schools is a program of the Smith Foundation. Eric Smith is the founder and CEO of Harbor Freight Tools, the national retailer. And about a decade ago, Eric really wanted to give back to individuals and educators who work with their hands and are really building the next generation of tradespeople in the United States. So from that time, our focus has been on public high schools across the country, and really starting with teachers and educators because they're the heart and soul of this work. And we've had a great run for nearly a decade. Again, the focus is on advancing skilled trades education in U.S. public high schools, and we do it in a number of different ways. Some people have heard of our Prize for Teaching Excellence, which is really the anchor of our work. And we do a number of different activities and strategies, research, communications, some policy work, and with all of that work, it's really built from the foundation of our prize-winning teachers, which we now have, 133 of them in 40 states across the country.
Yeah, talk about an impact, and we'll talk a little bit more about what that means. And we're joined by one of the prize winners, right, Danny?
Absolutely. So, knowing that this is a great automotive show and audience, quickly thought about Jay Abitz and his work in Freedom, Wisconsin, to really share his story and what winning the prize was all about and how it's kind of helped him continue to have the impact that he's had on high school students for more than a decade now.
And it's great because it's another Jay from Wisconsin. And I'm sure Danny, when he went into this, was like, you know what? We can't get enough of Jays from Wisconsin. So, Jay, welcome to the show. How's everything in Freedom?
Oh, it's pretty great. This is like day 2 of summer for us. So we're, looking to do some fun stuff, but we never get too far away from the cars either, as you can see.
For those of you that aren't watching the podcast, but you're listening, Jay has such a cool background. He's in a shop right now, your own shop, right? This is your own shop?
Yep, this is my home shop.
And I'm super jealous of what you've got sitting behind you. Explain what you've got sitting behind you.
That's a really nice, especially nice for Wisconsin because we got rust up here. So that's a really nice 51 Chevy 2-door Bel Air hardtop car. So that's a little winter project my sons and I work on. I got 3 boys, 12, 10, and 8. So gotta get that next generation greasy on those fingernails. So that's what we do in the winter, which really starts in about August, and goes till about mid-June today. It's pretty cold. So
it's felt like it this spring in Wisconsin. I don't think it stopped raining for about a month and a half there. So we're all excited for the sun to come out and be able to get outside and enjoy some of the hard work from over the winter and being able to put together some cool things. So Jay, tell us a little bit about the program that you've got there. Size of the school, the size of the program. Give us a little background on the school.
Sure. Well, Freedom is a small town. We're just outside of Green Bay, so we have some pretty, larger towns and cities around us. But we're a small community, rural farming community still. We got about 6,000 people in Freedom and just over 500 in the high schools. So this is the type of school district where, I'm living next to my students and my neighbors, and it's a very small community. So we got baseball tonight. So I'm going to see, a bunch of current and former students and families up at the Ball Diamonds tonight. We're going to play some baseball. So that's just kind of the vibe that we get in Freedom. And the automotive program's been real strong since 1972. My dad actually started the program in 1972. I took over for him in 2007. So he really built that program from nothing for 35 years and really set it on its path. And I still remember sitting in the interview, when they're hiring me, they say, "Well, Jay, what are you going to do?" And I was like, "Well, other than try to get out of that man's shadow, because my dad's a legend." I said, I'm just going to try to take it to the next level. We're going to add tools and technology and really, try to take the next step because we had such a great foundation. So we do regular, basic auto repair, light maintenance and repair. And then we also do automotive collision. So we're painting cars and doing body work and doing, collision repair as well. So really get a pretty good snapshot of the automotive industry. And we have students, I get freshmen all the way through seniors, and we have students in the youth apprenticeship program. So they're going out and working in the industry and really just try to give them a lot of different kinds of experiences. And we have, a long storied history. So I'm just kind of, riding the wave right now. And, we can talk more about the Harbor Freight Tools for Schools grant and things like that. But man, that really put us over the top too. So it's been a ride for the last, I just finished 17 years here in Freedom. So it's pretty crazy.
Was it automatic that you were going to be a teacher because your dad was, or how did this happen?
Yeah, no, that wasn't the plan. When I graduated high school, I tell my students all the time, I see myself in a lot of them. We have a lot of similarities. Obviously, growing up in the same town, going to the same school, we lived a lot of the same life. And I was sitting there at, I don't know, whenever you take the ACT, I won't tell people on national news like this how I did, but I didn't do so hot.
Me neither.
Yeah, I found out I wasn't. You're sitting in the guidance office, and they're like, "Well, Jay, you're not going to college." I was like, "Awesome," And so you end up at the local tech school, just taking some automotive classes because that's what I like, And I was so blessed. Our local tech schools, we got a couple good ones. Foxfly Tech is where I went. We had a good relationship with Foxfly Tech with my dad and kind of that administration, and we still do today and have a lot of kids that go there, and just had a lot of great teachers. Again, another like Bob Smith, he passed away a couple years ago. He was just this old school body man legend, like everybody knew Bob, big beard, black hat kind of guy, and I just soaked it all up, and I thought, man, what am I going to do with myself? And all of a sudden it became apparent, like, geez, my dad's going to retire, and who's going to take that job? Like who's going to do that? And so I decided to go to Stout for University of Wisconsin Stout. That's the only place you can get a tech ed degree in Wisconsin. So I thought, you know what? They said I couldn't go to college, but I'll try that for a year, and if it sticks, then maybe we'll do it. And so that's how I got here.
Wow. I think the part that I love about what you just said there is you're talking about kind of the legends that came before us, right? And I'm always such a big proponent or fan of all of those generations that did come before us. And in our former office, before we had moved here, we had all of these photos of like old school mechanics, right? And it was just kind of them working on like a Model A or working on something from the 50s or 60s. And yeah. I think it's such a cool thing that is underrated in our industry, is that if you get into this industry and you have that much of an impact on a lot of people, you truly do leave a legacy behind.
Yeah. I just got so one of my dad's former students, so he would have graduated, I don't even know, maybe late 70s, early 80s. He had a son that's the same age as me. Actually, he's a science teacher in the district. And his name is Brad Riska. And Brad just retired from Bergstrom Automotive. He was a collision repair tech for 100 years. He just retired, and you talk about that legacy. He was, cleaning out his toolbox and giving away tools to, really the younger technicians is what he did. Now, this is a guy, he's got a home shop. He's got a whole set of tools at home. He's not hanging up his tool belt. Don't get me wrong. But, there are so many collision specific tools, especially if you're doing late model collision. And those tools are really specialized and really expensive. And so he took those and gave them to these younger technicians. And I'm like, man, that's so cool. But we were talking, his son Mike and I, we were talking, he's like, well, if he's got anything left, would you be interested? I'm like, heck yeah, just, send us whatever. And so 2 5-gallon buckets show up on my doorstep a couple days later. And I wish I had one on me. I mean, just this, like vintage Snap-on screwdriver. It's got BR engraved on it. And the first thing I did is slam those in the toolbox, like legacy, man. Exactly. And he went through school, 40 years ago. And it's just so cool that not only, did that guy make an awesome living for himself and have a fantastic career, but, has given back not just this time, but 10,000 other times. He's a guy that I can call and ask a question. We have a network of those kinds of guys. But those tools, that Snap-on screwdriver's, just about as old as I am, and it could last another generation. So, I just think that's so cool. And you think about the wisdom and the experiences that come with even just that simple tool. It's, you're right. That's the kind of legacies that our industry can leave.
Thanks for listening to Beyond the Wrench. We'd like to take a minute to talk about this week's sponsor, Thermo King. Look out your window. Within minutes of being on the road, you will likely see a Thermo King refrigeration unit on a commercial vehicle. As the worldwide leader in sustainable transport climate control solutions, Thermo King is the heartbeat of the global cold chain. Our technology helps bring fresh food and other perishable items to communities around the world. Technician talent is what keeps such important assets moving. By joining a local Thermo King dealership, you become part of an elite team of technical talent and get to experience working with premium products. Each Thermo King dealership is family-owned and operated, offering a smaller company work environment backed by the training and support of a global industry leader. Thermo King dealers hire the best talent in the industry because we believe the world needs and deserves freshness. Think you have what it takes? We would love to have you join our team. Visit WrenchWay now to see openings in your area. And I think as we look at this, and Danny, bringing you back into the conversation here, because I think this is really important. One of the things that we've seen as a real need in not only the automotive, diesel, and collision industries, but skilled trades as a whole, is the need for industry support and being able to take industry and get involved with these programs in a way that we can help support them. Because if we don't, what we're seeing across the country is that those programs can easily go away. If maybe that the teacher at a school retires, and for those of you that don't know, we are battling a little bit of a teacher shortage right now as well. Not a little bit, we have a big teacher shortage right now. It's a real concern. And so without those resources and without industry backing, it's really, really hard to run a program, because you're almost, I don't want to say you're fighting administration, but you're fighting for your relevancy within the program and within the budget. And they have thin budgets. All of these schools have thin budgets. So Danny, what you are doing with schools, and you see a program like Jay is running, there are all kinds of really, really talented, special people in our industry that really struggle to get that support needed to run a growing program. I'm curious in your dealings with schools across the country as to like how many of these schools do you see that need that help? And I know that's a really vague question, but I do think there's a lot of low hanging fruit out there for us as an industry to be able to really go out and help.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting. We got into the work, one, because it was the passion of our founder, and he felt this was incredibly important. He was a kid who didn't love high school, and took a shop class, and for the first time felt like he had meaning and talent and possibilities, and quickly never went to college. And Eric at 19 started a business with his dad. So when he came to, the group of advisors who were helping figure out how to make a difference, it really came down to two things. Number one was shining a light on excellence. So people needed to know the brilliance of teachers like Jay and the hundreds and thousands that are out there, because those stories weren't being told. And then two, how do you leverage that excellence with actually making systems change? And like you said, eventually getting more money from the federal government, from states, from local jurisdictions into these CTE programs. So we've been taking kind of a varied approach, and it's very nuanced. The head of the Smith Foundation, Robin Kramer, she was chief of staff for two mayors of the city of Los Angeles, and also worked for a major education foundation. Our team is made up of a group of seasoned educators, policy leaders, communications experts. So we know it's a complicated problem to address. So we're taking kind of multiple strategies. I'll talk about the policy and the research piece just real quickly.
Please.
We recently helped one of our partners do research on kind of how much money in public middle and high schools is going towards CTE versus kind of the core curricular areas. And what he found from talking with the federal government and different states is that literally 3% of funding is going towards CTE. So you got 97% of the funds are going towards non-CTE programs. And then if you compare that to the success rates and the outcomes, nationally, about 50% of kids are actually going to college, and then less than that are finishing. So there's something backwards around how we're supporting our kind of middle school and high school programs. And budgets really are a reflection of your values. So we've got to somehow make that shift. And in order to do that, you've got to engage with policymakers and decision makers. And that comes back to telling the stories of how impactful these programs are in the lives of kids, which, gets back to our prize, which is a process to lift up and recognize the best trades teachers in the country and tell their stories. And we have, hopefully we're implementing different programs to kind of keep that network strong, so those teachers like Jay can be champions and really show it through the amazing work they're doing with their students. And it's still early in this work. I mean, less than 10 years. And I know Eric and the foundation are committed to this long term. But we think over time, we're already starting to see the ripple and the conversations and the stigma change. But it's going to require, not just Harbor Freight Tools for Schools, but other industry partners and other parts of our communities to really step up. So we're just excited to be a key piece of it.
I think that's the first time I've heard that stat, that 3% of funds go to the CTE programs. And I do think it makes a lot of sense as to why we're having some of the issues that we are, right? If you're only getting 3% of the funding, it is the most expensive program at most schools. It doesn't add up. It doesn't make sense. So when you're looking at it, and Danny, I'm going to stick with you here for a second. On the policy side of things, how big of a challenge are we facing? Because in a lot of ways, we're not the sexiest industries. We're not the ones that are as flashy as maybe biotech or, some other thing that a lot of schools kind of really want to go for, right? They want to have that prestige that goes with being academically elite, yet we're leaving so many kids behind. And we're dealing with this at a local level right now, where we're going through the baccalaureate program at our school, and the impact that it has. It's not all encompassing, right? It's for the few students that qualify for some of the greater programs that are really, I think, from my understanding, pushing towards going to Ivy League schools. And so completely the opposite of everything that we're talking about. So I am curious as to what kind of obstacles we face when we look at the policy side of things. And is that really where things start? Is that where change starts? Is at that policy level?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's got to be a key part of the conversation. I mean, we know we live in a country where there are very few issues that people agree on, and the support for workforce development, career and technical education, there's widespread public support. So we did a poll in 2019, a national poll, and it was students, parents, and voters. And across the board, 8 out of 10 said that we needed more funding at a federal, state, and district level for skilled trades education specifically. So, I mean, it's a hard nut to crack. I mean, nationally, we've been partnering with Harbor Freight, the company, who can advocate to start some of those conversations at the federal level. We wanted to start with just like, what if we created a definition for skilled trades education? Because we fall into this kind of CTE area that has, up to 18 pathways or more. And the data, when we tried to collect it on what exists in the US in terms of skilled trades programs, it was virtually impossible to collect. I mean, the states threw up their hands. So we're like, how do we measure progress if the data doesn't exist? So, I think the growth and the change needs to happen at the state level. There are a lot of governors that really believe in this, and then even working down to counties and school districts. If you can get a principal and a superintendent who are fired up about, the kids in their community being able to engage deeply in a skilled trades program, get an apprenticeship like Jay talked about, turn that into a job. I mean, those are the outcomes we're looking for, where you put these young people on a path to, family supporting wages and careers. And boards can make those decisions. They just need to be shown the way. And Jay, I know you're involved with local advisory boards, and I think it's really important just to continue to kind of pound the pavement on and tell the story about the difference these programs are making in kids' lives. And they're champions out there. I mean, we're seeing CTE centers being built all over the country, and this wasn't happening a decade ago. So like I said earlier, I think we just got to take multiple approaches. And the best voices for this are the educators themselves. I think the students whose lives are being transformed. If we can get parents on board, which sometimes is a little bit more challenging, but they got to see it and really believe it. I think it's possible. And yes, we're connected with Harbor Freight, the company, but this is not a singular effort of ours. We would love for there to be a collection of businesses and industries and partners that want to kind of go at this together, because I think that's how you create change. I mean, we're happy to be a spark and to draw attention to the issue, but we'd love to bring more folks along, because I think there are a lot of people that really believe in this mission.
Yeah, and you have done a fantastic job at that. We've done some collaborative things with you from the WrenchWay standpoint, and I think what you are doing in really leading the way in a lot of ways is very inspirational to all of us. And I think so many of us want the industry to get to a better place, and seeing a company, one of that size, taking a real interest in it, and two, just like actually doing some things that could make an impact, and not just saying or wanting to put it on a billboard somewhere, but actually doing things that are making an impact. I think it's just absolutely wonderful. Now, Jay, I'm going back to you here. We talk about the policy side and some of what needs to change at the top. What are you seeing on the local side? Are you seeing a lot of the same challenges that we've seen traditionally? Are some of those challenges changing or getting better? Are we facing headwind or tailwind? Give me an idea of boots on the ground, how we're looking right now.
Well, if we drill down, it really is the same discussion, where you talk about policy and administration and community and how is CTE in general reflected in all those same places. And, because of my perspective, growing up with my dad being a teacher, I can look back at his career and the times in which he was teaching and give some background on what a lot of that looked like even, 10, 15, 20, 30 years ago. And, in Wisconsin by us in the late 90s and the early 2000s, programs like ours, an automotive program or welding or wood shop, those programs were dying. They were being closed. And that's when, the computer age was coming, and the internet. And so that's where, what we call like a technology education teacher, that's where those people went. We went to computers and high tech and all this stuff, which is great. It all has its place. But that's really where the frowned upon trades thing kind of started. And then those programs started disappearing. And anybody in Wisconsin that built a high school or had an addition in the late 90s, early 2000s, they went away from those hands-on shops and they built technology centers. And so fast forward, another 10 years, like when I was looking at a job in the mid to late 2000s, there weren't people like me graduating from college. All of my classmates were looking to teach, project lead the way and microengineering and things like that. And again, that all has its place. But there were very few people that brought a skilled trade set to a teaching classroom. I grew up with an automotive background. I went to a tech school and got a degree, and I bring a skill set to the classroom versus, maybe just a practical background, and so it really came from all those directions. And then when you get into a school, even a school like mine, what I said in my job interview when I said I'm going to take this thing to the next level, one of the things that I said I was going to do is like Danny mentioned before, I'm going to tell the story. Those old legends, that generation that my dad came from, so gosh darn humble, and I love the man. But I'm looking at it right now. There's one newspaper article about my dad in like 40 years, because he just never told his story. He's doing all these things that, whose shadow I will never get out of. And nobody ever told the stories. And so, the first thing I did when I started teaching is I started showing and telling, get in the newspapers. We got in some magazines and even just taking pictures, long before social media was a thing, just showing people that walk down my hallway that have no idea what we're doing, teachers and students and administrators and guidance counselors that, oh yeah, that's the auto shop, that's for the boys and, the steel toe boots and stuff, and then once I got people interested in what we were doing, all of a sudden now I have a percentage of girls. And I have, boys that maybe they were intimidated to take an auto class because I don't even know how to open the hood or whatever, when you make that a more positive outlook and you're more inviting and you show people like, hey, look at all this cool stuff we do. Like, look at this is cool. This is fun. You guys want to do this? And that really changed the face of our program. And then when we get in, situations like this where we're talking about our programs, and organizations like yours that are shedding light on the good things that our programs do. I've sat in a lot of webinars that Harbor Freight Tools for Schools has put on. I've sat in these things with Danny before, and one of the early ones that I was a presenter in, I don't remember second or third, but I had to listen to these other two guys talk about the stuff that they're doing. I'm like, I just fix cars. I mean, these guys are out here changing lives, and I'm changing oil. So, it's just unbelievable where, CTE can take not only a program, but really an individual student, and I've had so many other great teachers that I've worked with over the years. We have a school right down the road from us, Monash, and I used to have a really good partnership with a teacher there. And we used to send kids back and forth when we were doing different things. Be like, hey, you got a guy to do this? And we'd literally send high school kids back and forth on a field trip, and they'd spend time in these different shops. And one of those kids owns a Porsche restoration shop now that's, just
wow.
he just won Pebble Beach last year. He's not even 30.
Wow.
That's a kid that was in my auto shop and in Menasha High School, 10 years ago. That kind of stuff, you don't know anything about that. That story's not been told enough.
No, it hasn't. And I think your point about your dad being so humble is very similar to a lot of the legends that we grew up with as tech ed teachers, right? Yeah. They maybe didn't want to be the center of attention, and they didn't want the light shined on them. But at some level, we almost do ourselves a disservice because we don't garner the attention we need to get that backing. And I think in a lot of ways, we have to work together. We have to shine a light on this stuff so that if administration or whoever it is, they're dealing with such slim budgets all the time that you're always going to make somebody upset. And if we've only got 3% of funds, which still, Danny, blows my mind, 3% of funds going to CTE programs, we have to have a backbone. And I think that's where industry can be such a help. And Jay, I'm curious, in your experience, if the industry has been present in your program. It sounds like it has, in being able to really back you up and help you build up the program in general.
Yeah, I'll tell you, where we are in what we call Northeast Wisconsin, there's a lot of industry by us. In our, again, to the legacy, in our town, in the town of Freedom, there's probably more body shops per capita than anywhere else in the country. And that's 100% attributed to all of my dad's former students. I mean, that's wow. Who we are. So there is literally someone that I can call for anything and everything. But that being said, you can't tap those small businesses and those same resources all the time, right? I can't be calling, one of my best buddies owns a shop. I could probably hit a golf ball there. He's right down the road, and I can't call him every day. Hey, I need this, I need that, I need this. That would wear all of that good love out. And so, industry connections is a really big part to being successful. We talk a lot about, when I was in college, they talked about grant writing, and I was like, well, that's dumb. I'm never going to do that. But I found out really quick, if you want to be successful, if you want to be successful and you want to have everything you need, you have to. And you have to build industry relationships, and you have to ask for help. And you have to also have your doors open. A lot of the donations that I'll get from larger companies, a lot of times they're clearing out a shelf or a cabinet. And so do I need every item on that list? No, I do not. But some of it, I'll use all of it eventually. But there might be 2 or 3 things in there that I really need. But a lot of that has to do with us even just knowing how to ask, to say to a business partner, and we can talk a lot about how you build those relationships. Maybe I've inherited a lot of those as well. I know that. But there are people in this industry that want to help us. And I get pointed, my vendors will reach out to me and say, hey, I was in a shop earlier, this week, and he really just wants to get involved, and so I have people working for me that I don't even know are out there doing that kind of work and building those relationships for me. And again, the local tech schools and things like that, the industry, the automotive industry is a close-knit industry. Once you get you into it and you get to know the people around you, like you say, those are people that want to help. But with the budgets, my piece of the pie, 3%, that's a number that's very interesting. I'd like to learn a lot more about that. And I 100% believe that, because I know in the public school how many slices of pie there are. That's the other thing you've got to realize too. And, we've gone through a number of political seasons in Wisconsin in my tenure, and we've had some pretty significant budget cuts over the years. And just even this year, I know I've been told that not only for the last 2 years do we have a smaller and tighter budget, but we're facing a deficit next year. So that means we are going to get cut. Our piece of the pie in Freedom, though, what I mean to tell you is that I think our piece of the pie is pretty substantial. When I talk to other schools and other districts and other automotive teachers, especially pound for pound, we're a small school. The number that I get for my automotive budget, I think is pretty decent for the size of our school and everything else that factors into that. But I'm here to tell you that that's not enough. It's not anywhere near enough. if I call my local Sherwin-Williams rep and I place an order for primer and clear and base coat in September, if I was trying to, place an order, to get me to Christmas, that would be the end of my budget. If I ordered that all right then and there, that would be the end of my budget. We're hiring a new metal shop teacher. We had an opportunity to expand and hire a new guy. And so he is coming from a bigger school, and we were talking about budgeting, and, I do all of our department budgeting. So we have a wood shop, metal shop, auto shop, and I kind of, control all of that, or at least see over all of that. And he's coming from a school in the program where when they need steel, they order it. In Freedom, when you need steel, we need to talk about that, and then you need to cut that in half, and then we need to talk about that again. Then we're probably going to cut it in half again. And then in reality, you need to go down the street and make some friends, because we're not really going to buy any of that. If he was to order steel for the students to weld on, even in a 9-week, first quarter course, the steel that he needs first quarter probably equates to our entire annual budget. Oof. And so that's, you're starting with a deficit. That's really where, what I'm trying to say is that even though I think I know that my program is well supported. I know that our school board loves us and supports. I'm going to see some of those guys tonight. And they love us. They're doing everything they can do for us. My administration has been nothing but supportive my entire career. The default answer in Freedom is yes. When I ask, the answer is yes, until it has to be no. And I know it's not like that for other people. And so I can't tell you the point I'm trying to make is, even with all that, we are still short. We literally start in the red. So industry support, organizations like Harbor Freight Tools for Schools that, Danny and I have talked about this before. When I first applied for the grant almost 10 years ago, I was in on the first year, and I applied for this grant. I did all these videos, I did all this stuff, maybe not videos, maybe it was an essay or whatever. We wrote some stuff, did some, Q&A, and I submitted this. And a couple weeks later, or a month later, I got notified that, I was like on the lowest on the totem pole. I was like an entry level winner, right? But I got a $250 gift card, and I was like, oh, like, we're going to buy a jack. Like, we are buying a floor jack. Heck yeah.
We need a jack.
Yeah, you always need a jack. And, you laugh. It's like, oh, Jay, $250. That was a big deal. That was awesome. You know what I'm saying? Like that, even that one simple, kind act, a drop in a bucket to an organization like that was a big deal for me. And then obviously for me in that grant process, it only went up from there. But what a great example of something that somebody might see as a small act can make even a big difference, even just in it for a guy like me, for my energy level, for my interests. Like, I, as a teacher, feel supported. I feel like that's a gift. Like, hey, wow, that's for me. That's fantastic. Things like that really make a difference.
It's so funny that you say that, because until you said that, I didn't even think about the mental side of it. But maybe if you are getting beaten down by budget restraints constantly, just that, even that $250 gift card, I've talked to a lot of schools where there's teachers that are paying for shop towels out of their own pocket. There's teachers that are paying for brake cleaner out of their own pockets. They're doing this kind of stuff that shouldn't be stuff that they're doing, right? They shouldn't need to pay for those supplies out of their pocket. And we always talk about that, how far $250 goes, how far $500 goes, how far a donation of some type, so they don't have to go buy that tool goes, right? Mm-hmm. It's just being able to be present and aware with your local program and shops. I'm talking to you right now that you have opportunities to go get involved. And I think so many of you are shy about doing it because, hey, that school already has a big presence by the local dealer. They're not going to let me in. I don't think that could be further from the truth for most schools. Like, I think most schools are open to hearing what you have to say and being able to work together to be able to get that budget or get that donation of some form to be able to make the program stronger. So to your point on the mental side of it, and just having some wins, I think in a lot of cases when it comes to that budget conversation, it is absolutely paramount. Did you know that WrenchWay offers free solutions to help auto, diesel, and CTE instructors connect with local shops and dealerships? Nearly 700 schools across the country have used WrenchWay to successfully get resources and support for their classrooms, such as tool and equipment donations, advisory committee members, shop tours and guest speakers, and much, much more. It's an easy way to bring education and industry together to promote and improve careers in automotive and diesel. There's no obligation, hidden costs, or fees. WrenchWay will always be free for instructors to use. Visit wrenchway.com and click on the For Schools link under Solutions to learn more and sign up. Direct link is in the show notes.
Yeah. And there's a yearbook picture from 2010 or 2011 of my auto club guys. And we had just gotten a grant, and we had these matching tech shirts, and it was great. But what they have is they have all these rolls of tape. Like every kid's like, yeah, look at these rolls of tape. Because we got a pallet of 3M 233 finishing tape donated. And literally the week before that, we had gone like this forever. We're painting cars. Back then, we do a lot of quickie paint jobs, and we do, 10, 12 cars a year easy. And we often would get to the point of masking. You go through primer, and you prime and block, and here we go. All right, we're going to paint this thing. And now we start taping it up, and we'd run out of tape. And tape is expensive. Automotive tape is expensive. You can't buy, blue cheap painter's tape. You got to buy good tape. 3M tape is where it's at. And that tape, I can only buy it a sleeve at a time. That was 12 rolls. And that doesn't go that far when you got 20 kids doing this, that, and the other thing, and a couple rolls, end up on the floor, and a couple rolls end up, somewhere else. They roll around, they disappear. And multiple times that year, we had to stop for, a period of time, a chunk of time, until I could get like a roll of tape. And that grant came, and I literally, I welled up a little bit, like, oh, that is a
boy, did we need that.
Did we need that?
Yeah.
And, you talk about how a business or an organization could get involved. And, I get businesses that will reach out to me that sometimes even honestly where they've had a bad experience with another school. Like they tried to give somebody something and it didn't work out, or somebody didn't want what they were given. My dad used to hustle prizes for Skills USA when we were running our Skills USA competition. And he, again, humble, would always say to these businesses, walk into the dealership and say, hey, I know you guys got stuff laying around. That shelf, that closet, that dusty stuff that's just kind of in your way, clean that out and send it my way. And the message was, I will literally take anything, And I remember in the 90s going to a GM dealership, and they'd show up with like this old dusty Dale Earnhardt GM Goodwrench coat. You know what I mean? And to them, they're like, geez, I got 6 of these. The guys don't even want them. And the high school kids are like, oh, this is the greatest thing ever. That was a prime example. And, they would send us, I have a lifetime supply of body filler now, so don't mail me body filler or anything. But, they would get samples from the vendors, and they'd get a can of body filler, open it up, and be, I don't like that. Great. I do, because it's free. Send that to me. Or sandpaper. I have a body shop right in Freedom, former student, second generation. He just gets, I don't know where he gets it from. He gets these sandpaper samples all the time, anything but 3M, and he hates it. He won't use it. It doesn't matter what brand it is. He is brand loyal, and he won't use it. So I get these boxes from him of just all kinds of random sandpaper. And that's an example of where, someone that maybe just hasn't, they've just never been poor. Somebody might look at that box and go, well, geez, I don't want to dig through that or whatever. And they might not take that donation. Whereas me, I'm like, okay, we're going to sort through that. We're going to put that in the cabinet. We're going to stack it up. And there's only one roll of 80 grit, which is what I really need. But eventually we're going to get to that 220, 320, whatever. We're going to use it all. And we're going to take that. We're going to be really happy about that. And it's going to save us somewhere else in the budget line. So that's kind of in my opinion, the best of both worlds in the donation. If you're a high school teacher, a high school program, don't be greedy. You take what you get and you use it. And for businesses and industry partners, start anywhere, man. I mean, there is just so many different ways that a business or an organization can make a difference. As small as it may seem, it can make a big difference to us.
Yeah. I think that boost that you're talking about, just being recognized and receiving a donation, we were really surprised. So this prize for teaching excellence, it's a large chunk of change. So we give $1.5 million to 25 teachers annually. So
Incredible.
a year and a half ago, we did an evaluation of all the prize winners in terms of trying to understand what difference it made. And the two top things we heard was not about the cash. I mean, one was it just kept me going, being recognized and supported. I was tiring out of this, made it through the pandemic, et cetera. So that was amazing to hear. And then two was actually the network, being connected with peers that do similar work. And that's another thing that Harbor Freight Tools for Schools does, is every summer we bring everyone together in person, and in addition to the webinars that Jay was talking about, and just feeling like you're not alone. A lot of CTE teachers, they might be their only one in their high school or in their district. So that connection is really important. And these are, as Jay has said multiple times, just like hardworking, humble people. And that, the recognition from a donation, a simple donation or a cash donation, goes a really, really long way. And the relationships, I mean, I've got the greatest job in the world to be able to know 100+ of these teachers who are brilliant, creative individuals, and to just kind of create the space and the support for them to connect with one another and continue to thrive is like, I mean, that's what we're all in this work for. It's for the meaning. It's to feel like you've got a purpose and to just leverage whatever resources you've got to make the world a better place. So, I could sit here all day long and listen to Jay's stories, and every summer we do it with. This year we got 70 of them coming out. Jay's still got young kids and he wants to play a little bit of golf while the sun is out. So we're still trying to get them there, but
playing hard to get.
Yeah.
we have ways to stay connected. So it's just, I hope this is encouraging to others to get involved, and there's so many ways you can do it.
Well, Danny, talk about that a little bit. What is the process for being able to get some of this money or win some of this money or win the prizes? Give us a little background there.
Sure. So we're in the middle of the 8th year of the prize. As I said, it's $1.5 million to 25 excellent skilled trades teachers from public high schools. It's a rigorous application and process. It's very reflective. Teachers write in their application why they got into teaching, how their program is aligned with industry, how they integrate hands-on learning, project-based learning into their programs, what their outcomes are. Jay mentioned a couple videos. There's learning modules where you watch an expert teacher and you kind of share your takeaways from the video. Today, June 11th, when this is being recorded, we actually announced our 50 finalists for 2024. And then from the 50 finalists, there's a second round of the application where there's a video that each teacher submits, kind of showing what makes their program great. And then we announce the 25 in the fall of each year. And we do kind of the big kind of check presentation. We bring a Harbor Freight tool card. And it's a surprise. We just show up on campus after, coordinating with the principal and the school. And it's a magical day. And these are people who deserve the recognition and the celebration. And we put a lot of communications effort behind it too. So there's local news coverage, and businesses kind of see, wow, we've got a rock star in our community. Maybe there's a way to support. So there's a lot of thinking that goes into the continuum, so it's not a one and done effort. And this network that I mentioned, which is now up to 133 teachers, they just kind of operate on their own, and they've met one another and connect long term. And then after we bring the teachers together during the summer, we literally spend a week where we're kind of professionally facilitated sessions in combination with some hands-on activities and field trips. And then we give those teachers an opportunity to apply for small pilot grants to apply what they've learned at our convening, which is called Let's Build It. And that's open to our whole network of prize winners. So Jay has taken advantage of one of those opportunities where we put out, a request to design a project that's student-led that can have an impact on your local community. And this led to all these amazing ideas that students were kind of the brainchild behind. They went through an exercise in terms of what's the local need, how can we help, how can we leverage the knowledge and skills that we've developed in this program, and then they implement it. Jay's probably got one of the top 3 projects that we've ever funded that he did with his students to change the life of a local veteran in freedom. So, Jay,
we have to hear this story now. Yes.
Yeah. How much time you got? It's a good one.
Yeah.
It's good. It's amazing.
Well, our grant process like that, when we wrote those, I talked to my students, and this was fresh off of our grand prize win, so like the kids are fired up about this stuff. And we talked about different ways that we could put our automotive skill set to work, and so the first one that we wrote, the first Better Together grant we wrote, was actually hoping to just fix a car for somebody. We just kind of left it open-ended at that, and we ended up getting a van. It just so happened that we were connected with a local VA, and there was a veteran in need, and so we got hooked up there. And I don't want to sell that story short, but that was kind of the first thing, and we were like, dude, this is it. Like, there is nothing better than serving our veterans. I mean, this, yes, this is what we want to do.
Talk about purpose, right?
Yeah. I mean, yeah. So we were all beside ourselves. This worked out really great. He was destitute, needed a car, got him a car. Great. Couple months after that, a Freedom High School graduate, he's a couple years older than me, a guy that I knew, that I went to high school with, he posted that he was in need of an RV. And after doing a little digging, we found out that he was homeless. He was 100% disabled, was injured when he was in the Army, had a non-combat injury, but it was super significant. The guy, looks like he's twice as old as he is, and can't really move, disabled. And he was living in his car and getting a hotel once a week and taking a shower and getting cleaned up. And this was the cycle that he was in, and he couldn't save any money, couldn't just get out of that cycle, and wanted to buy an RV. He's like, I can't get a loan for an RV. They won't, the VA won't sign off on an RV loan. They'll give you a car. I already got one of those. But he had understood that there was potential to live a lifestyle much better than what he was in an RV. And so we wrote the grant. Harbor Freight Tools for Schools was kind enough to approve that grant. We took that money, partnered with a bunch of other people. Cunis RV, a local RV dealership, was one of them. Got this just massive Class A RV. I mean, I was thinking more like, camper special. And, that's our wheelhouse. And we ended up with this 40-foot, Class A monster that had been sitting, was in need of repair and restoration. And so my students just got to it. We gutted that thing, redid the interior, built it out. I mean, we ended up, way beyond my skill set. I mean, we're building a house, really, is what we're doing. We're building walls, and we're doing interior, and we're doing plumbing and electrical. And I got this great picture of one of my former students. He was a senior that year, and of course, his apprenticeship was in electrical. He's an electrician. And so here we are. I'm like, look at all these, we got to do all these lights and switches and outlets and receptacles, all these things that don't work. And he literally put his entire skill set to work and rewired the whole interior, and just did it all. Boom, done, out of here. It would have taken me 10 times as long to figure all that stuff out. And this is what I do every day. And had a plumber, got a plumber on site. One of the kids is a plumber, and he's just doing all the, and I don't camp. The Abitzes don't camp. So I don't even, talk about being out of your depth. I don't even know how to turn the water on in an RV. So I got all these kids coming out of the building. They're like, oh, cool camper. And they're opening the awning, and I'm like, oh, I didn't know we had one of those. Just really, really going to town on this thing. And so we got it. We did all this stuff, and then we took it to a local shop. The guy is 1,000 yards from the high school, Klink Equipment. And Brian Klink, talk about industry support. This guy wants to do anything he possibly can do for our program. And I've actually, we have a business, and so I've done some business work with him as well. But from the education side, he's like, Jay, when you need something, you call me. I don't know if I can always do it, but you call me. So I called him, and I was like, listen, we can't even jack this thing up. It's too big. It doesn't fit in the shop. Like, I need you to go through it, mechanically underneath, do the brakes, do the fuel lines, just give it a good once over. And those guys, I mean, they have a couple really good mechanics, but their head heavy duty guy, Jason, he is just, I mean, he's world class, he's so good. And they went through it all. I mean, just all of it. And the longer it was there, the more nervous I got. Like, we're gonna run out of money. This is gonna be bad. And I tried to tell them from the beginning, what we had in a budget. And he says, don't worry, we're gonna take care of it. And at the end of the project, we had done all our work. They had done all their work. The money is long gone. And we sit down, and he's got 5 pages, and I'm going through 5 pages of this work order going, holy cow, this is a lot, nothing but zeros at the bottom of the page. And the total on their end was $28,000. I mean, just, and he's giving me that's a half off labor rate. You know what I mean? It's $28,000. And I would never disclose the total discount, but Brian basically handed me the keys and said, this was an awesome project. Thanks for bringing it to us.
Wow.
And
wow.
Exactly. Wow. I mean, all he wanted to do is shake our veteran's hand, get to meet him, and Cunis was the same way, that's how that project happened. And really, all I did is facilitate, you know what I mean? I couldn't have made any of this happen on my own. The kids did all the hands-on work. We have, Harbor Freight Tools for Schools and Klink and Cunis that really came along and made this happen. And I'll tell you what, our veteran got in that in September, and he went, and I'm praying for him for, nonstop for weeks. And I didn't hear from him for a while. I'm starting to get nervous. And he'd hit me every couple of days. He'd shoot me a text, and he'd be like, hey man, I'm in, Southern Illinois. Hey man, I'm in, whatever. And he wanted to go southwest, and I'm like, I don't know how far you should take that thing, talk about a shakedown. I mean, he just got in and went. And to make the point here, he went all the way to Deming, New Mexico. That's where he parked it for the winter. Okay. Had absolutely zero breakdowns, no mechanical failures, no issues, no nothing. Plumbing, heat, electrical, AC, everything worked. Okay. When we had redone the inside, I mean, we put TVs in this thing. We put an Xbox in it. We got a brand new bed. A former student owns a furniture company. They gave us a brand new queen bed for this thing. I mean, it's nicer than my house on the inside. I mean, it is awesome. Okay. And so he told me once he got settled, and I was so worried that he'd run out of money. He's living on disability. Like, how you paying for gas in this thing? Even driving, the 3 months he spent driving and plunking around, he saved more money compared to his previous lifestyle that he actually had a savings account. And now he's, so he's spent the winter now. He's, and even, so he was pretty settled. He was west. I think he was in like Colorado or something when I saw him post this, but he posted, hey guys, anybody have a good basic toolkit? I just need a couple around the house things. I mean, he's got money to buy around the house things. That's the impact that we made. And of course, I sent them a link for a couple Harbor Freight things that I had on my list. I mean, like, get a couple of these going. But we take for granted so many things in this process, and the things that we think are so great, and we don't even think about them every day. We were building this RV and doing all this stuff, and I'm so excited every day. And my wife goes, "What are you going to put in it?" And I'm like, "What do you mean? I already got TVs and stuff." She's like, "Jay, it's like buying a house, dude. We need kitchen utensils. We need this. We need that." And so my wife, takes this whole side on her own, makes a bunch of social media posts, and within 48 hours, pretty much everybody in the town of Freedom dropped me off a bag at the house. And I mean, I could send you pictures. Every drawer, every cupboard, every cabinet in that RV was full, stocked,
Wow.
canned goods, utensils, bathroom stuff, everyday bathroom stuff. And just, one of our former teachers, he's a metal shop teacher. He saw this, and he takes a fifth wheel of Florida every year. He goes, "Hey, if this guy's camping, I know exactly which Blackstone he needs." And he shows up with this camping Blackstone. Again, I would know nothing about this. This $300 camping Blackstone. Like, this is perfect for him. Here you go. Stuff like that. Like, I have never seen a community come together and make something. It was just so humbling. I mean, something that, again, I could never do on my own, and an opportunity to put our skill set to such great use. I mean, I told the kids from start to finish, like, we will never do anything more impactful than this ever again. Like, this is the crown of my career right here, now and forever. I can tell you that.
What an amazing story. You talked earlier about the need to tell more stories like this, and those true impact types of stories that not only you have, but I think so many of our educators throughout the country need to be told more. And the students and some of the things that they've done, it just mind blowing to me that that's out there, and that's not everywhere across the nation, all over the news, right? It's such a cool story, such a heartwarming story. And both of you, I mean, just the things that both of you are doing to have an impact on our younger people and the next generation of our industry, of all of the skilled trades as a whole, is absolutely needed. It's necessary. And I'm just so happy that we were able to bring you on and shine a light on it today, because I truly am a huge fan of both of you and what you're doing out there. So thank you so much for joining the program. Danny, how did people learn more about the Harbor Freight Tools for Schools program?
A lot of different ways. I mean, our website, which is hftforschools.org, and then, same in terms of social media handles, Facebook, Instagram, X. And we also put out a monthly e-newsletter, which we call the Toolkit, which really highlights the stories like Jay just shared, to continue to kind of lift up the field and hopefully, bring ideas to both industry partners, but also educators across the country. And then just reach out. We're here and happy to answer questions, and appreciate the opportunity, Jay, to kind of share some of this information and the stories.
Thank you. And Jay, I'm going to leave it with you. What advice would you give to that teacher that's out there that wants to go after something like this?
What I would say is that it takes work, it takes effort, but talk about returns. When you write a grant, if you pursue the prize from Harbor Freight Tools for Schools, you're never guaranteed to win on anything. But I found the process, especially in the Harbor Freight Tools for Schools, to be introspective. You know what I mean? Like, I got excited. I learned some stuff. And that's always great. But when you seek, you will find. There are people that want to help you. There are organizations and businesses that want to help you. You have to be humble and ask, and you have to be willing to receive. So get out there and go get it, and find somebody that wants to make your program better.
That's one heck of a way to end it. Gentlemen, I really, really appreciate your time today, and it was an absolute pleasure getting to talk with you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
That wraps up another episode of Beyond the Wrench. If you liked this episode, please show your support by rating and following the podcast. You can also watch the video interviews on WrenchWay's YouTube channel. Speaking of WrenchWay, did you know Beyond the Wrench is managed and produced by the WrenchWay team? WrenchWay is an online community dedicated to promoting and improving automotive and diesel careers. We help technicians find the best shops to work at, and we also help auto, diesel, and CTE instructors get more support from local industry. You can learn more by visiting wrenchway.com.